Welcome to DNF. He's Spencer Hall. I'm Jessica Smetana. I'm in this weirdly lit room this morning and we're running a little late because, Spencer, we have a lot of conspiracy theories to discuss today. And so we needed to get ourselves set up. What happened in that race in the Dutch Grand Prix?
Plots, mayhem, conspiracies, right? A
Mischief.
cabals. Cabal conspired to rob Lewis Hamilton of a win and to rob Max Verstappen of a potential win, which he eventually got anyway because he's Max Verstappen. That's what happened, right? Drivers, substitute teams were used. Drivers stopped mysteriously. Former teammates answered the call for favors. Maybe their engine just ran out. I don't know. When you get something like Zandvoort and you get the Dutch Grand Prix and things get so out of hand so quickly toward the end of the race, it's very hard not to lean into conspiracy theories, especially when, for the rare moment in conspiracy theory history, they provide the most compelling answer as to how things happen. Which part of this thread do you want to pull apart first? Because we should state, for all the conspiracy theorizing, Max Verstappen won. It's 2022. Max Verstappen won.
And realistically, Red Bull doesn't need to pull off elaborate conspiracy theories to win a race, let alone this championship, Spencer. They have been in a comfortable lead for a while now. But what happened with Yuki Tsunoda was so bizarre. So let's start with that, because that ultimately played a pretty big role in how the rest of this race finished up.
So Yuki believes he has a loose wheel, I think, is after a pit stop, and believes he has a loose wheel and that something is wrong with the car. Okay, he comes into the pits right after slowing considerably. I think he was going like 30 miles an hour at one point on the track, and he comes into the pits. And just what do they do? What do they adjust when you go?
I don't know. What was that? They had two mechanics reaching into his little cockpit, fiddling with something in his seatbelt. I think conspiracy theorist Spencer would tell you that they were giving him an important piece of information, Spencer, which was don't stop here. Go back out and cause a virtual safety car or just a regular safety car, because the overlords at Red Bull are calling this one, and we need your help, Yuki. Take one for the team. Is that what the conspiracy theorists are thinking right now?
That's what the conspiracy theorists would say, because at that point, Mercedes, particularly Lewis Hamilton, is on Verstappen's ass. They are gaining speed, I believe, at that point, marginally, doing very, very well. And at that point, have the potential to be 2-3 with no one between them right behind Max Verstappen. So a fully unified Mercedes team working together. I need you to just go ahead and frame and pause this in your mind, okay? That one part of the Alpha Conspiriari, right, as our commenters are calling it, depends on a unified and cohesive Mercedes team working together and not in their own interests to make this happen. Just bookmark that thought in your head, okay? Because of something that happens later. That is the thought that they're telling him to go out, cause a virtual safety car, get everyone together so that they have a shot at eliminating Mercedes from this race and preserving a win for Max Verstappen. Is that what happened, Jess? Did we have a unified Mercedes team here?
No, and this actually didn't even end up being the only safety car, Spencer, because then who came to the rescue for our friend Lewis Hamilton very shortly afterwards? It was DNF friend Valtteri Bottas.
That's right. Our close personal friend Valtteri Bottas ends up stalling out in the middle, saying that his engine is gone. He is in the middle of the track. Kind of a scary moment there for a second, because he stopped pretty abruptly and there was still lap traffic like flying around him. So he stops. We get another virtual safety car. The accordion tightens. We get all of the people to get all of the race pack together again. Naturally, where would a conspiracy theorist go on this? Oh, that's right. Valtteri Bottas ended up being at one point teammates with Lewis Hamilton for a little substantial period of time, which would be Lewis Hamilton's like serious championship run with Mercedes, with Valtteri as his mostly harmonious second, at times sort of not, but yeah, that's where a conspiracy theorist would go at this point. Remember, here's the fun part about conspiracy theories: they're always right. They're always right. And at no point do you have to prove them. They just have to seem semi-plausible
Yes.
in the face of a way scarier answer, which is absolute chaos. I wanted to ask you this, Jessica. Do you believe any of this in terms of potential conspiratorial thinking? Okay. In F1, a sport so dramatic, so moneyed, and so run by the people we consider to be the powers that be in this world, make sense sometimes. Do you believe any of it?
I do believe in Formula One teams conspiring against one another. It has happened. This is not like a far-fetched thing in this sport. All you have to do is go to the wiki page for the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, Spencer, and read all about how teams have done this in the past. We should also mention, before I answer your question, what happened in qualifying yesterday, which I know we were both very busy flipping between college football games and Formula One qualifying, but Checo mysteriously crashed out in Q3 after Verstappen had clinched pole position before the other drivers were able to finish their last flying laps. So this has been a weekend where a lot of lucky things have shaken out for Red Bull. Now, if you're asking if I believe that this Alpha conspiratory really is some sort of Christian Horner, Kris Jenner designed play to put their person out on top, not really. Because they didn't really need to do it. Max still had what probably could have been the winning strategy without the virtual safety car from Yuki Tsunoda. And also, if you're going to stop the race, why do a virtual safety car? Why not just go full out and crash into a wall and completely slow things down? I don't know. But Spencer, I don't think this was a conspiracy theory, but I do think, like you said, every good conspiracy theory just needs to have a tiny kernel of truth in it. And this one has just enough that I do think it is very suspicious.
I would like to discuss something that is not a conspiracy theory, and that is pretty cut and dry. And I think it marks a tragic point in DNF's history as a podcast, because we have given the lad of the week every single week to George Russell as the outstanding lad of the week. And we had a heel turn this week. We had a heel turn because, yes, we did, because remember, one important brick of that Alpha conspiratory theory is that we needed Mercedes to act together as a cohesive team to push Hamilton to the front. And heading into the final laps of the race with tires that he viewed as suboptimal, Russell called for his own pit. He called for his own pit stop, was allowed to do so, took the tires, and nothing between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Verstappen easily passing Hamilton, and eventually Hamilton falling to fourth as Russell rose to second. We watched the lad become dark, George.
We watched the lad become bad. George Russell broke bad. How long do you think he considered before calling himself in for the tire change? Am I going to lose best lad? My fourth or fifth consecutive best lad award if I do this. Do you think he thought about it? And do you think he decided, no, I am no longer the best lad. I must do this for myself.
I think he tried it. I think he tried it on. I think he was like, well, what if I wasn't the best lad? Like, he's driving around. He's like, I am the best lad. Because I think what George Russell thinks most of the time driving around is, I am the best lad. And I think he was driving around and he was like, have you ever had that moment where you're like, what if I put on the leather jacket? What if I smoke a cigarette? Right? What if I write something nasty on the wall with this can of spray paint? I think.
What if I turn into Kaniki from Greece? That is who you're describing.
Thank you for picking that up. That is exactly right. What if I become a member of the Pink Ladies? That's what he was thinking.
And now he's Rizzo. Yeah, Spencer, this was sad to see. So happened when George Russell went in to change the tires, because the setup was such that it seemed like even after Yuki Tsunoda's virtual safety car, Lewis Hamilton still had a chance, albeit a much smaller chance because Verstappen was able to put on fresh tires, but he still had a chance to either win this race or end up on the podium. And then George Russell makes this decision, and what happens?
Well, our dude gets second. He does get the second, but overall, perhaps cost his team points because there's a realistic chance, given things. I know you have to assume that Max Verstappen does not win this race, okay? But a Mercedes 1-2 finish or a 2-3 finish is better than the 2-4 finish they had, okay? So making a marginal call for self-interest here. I can't ask George Russell not to do that. I can't, ultimately. We have to remember, we call everybody the nice lad. They all get around, they all pat backs. They will all stab each other in the back at 180 miles an hour as well. Right? When you see it, take
Absolutely.
it. If you get the, yeah, and that is ultimately the paradox at the center of having a two-member race team. Ultimately, they're competing against each other, right? Yes, they are working together for the most part, but especially in a late race situation, the part that people will ask about is Mercedes letting this happen. Is Mercedes saying, yeah, go for it? I think that's unprecedented. I think the notion that we would have seen them make a call for George over Lewis at any point, would this have seemed like anything but heresy 365 days ago?
I mean, I think it's pretty shocking because not only did they, I don't think George ever had a chance to win this race, right? Like this was
Right.
purely like to put him in a better position, whereas Lewis still had a very small chance to win this if George just stays out and is able to defend Verstappen after the restart. So George goes back in and Lewis is essentially left out to dry. He's totally exposed. His radio message was very telling. I mean, he's a guy who's not usually this emotional, and he also very rarely is upset with his team publicly on the radio. Spencer, he's always, even when they lose, Lewis Hamilton's always the guy thanking everyone for, thanking everyone in the garage and the factory and everything like that. And his radio message was, I can't believe you guys effing screwed me. I can't tell you how pissed I am right now. And then after the race, Toto Wolff came on the radio and said, Lewis, like, I'm sorry about that. Let's talk about this in private. Like, let's not hash this out over the radio message. Like, come back into the garage. We'll chat about this behind the scenes. And Lewis's response was, I just want to thank everyone in the garage, all the mechanics. We had the best pit stops of the season so far. Did not acknowledge Toto Wolff. Completely went underneath him and said everyone else did great. And basically, like, yeah, sure, yeah, we're gonna talk about this, buddy.
Yeah.
And I also, Spencer, I don't know if you caught Toto Wolff after the race. I thought that his comments defending the strategy were actually pretty weak. He multiple times during the post-race interview was like, sorry, what was the question? I can't hear you, which is what you do when you're filibustering because you don't know how to answer something. And he did it a couple times and didn't really have a great excuse for why they didn't just go all the way with George and Lewis staying out on the same set of tires. And Nico Rosberg also after the race, and like Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, by the way, like they're not the best. They're not the best of friends. Nico Rosberg was like, why did Mercedes do that? If you're going to go for it, you got to go for it. You can't do half and half. You can't like pick one guy and the other guy at the same time and go for it. Like this is the situation where you need both drivers to be on the same page, and they did not go for it like that, Spencer.
Yes. I mean, think about that. We're all very continental in F1, right? Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton have buried the hat. That's ancient history. We're not friends, but we're definitely cordial. When Nico Rosberg is coming to your defense, right, with all that old beef in the fridge, that's bad. That's old a bad look for Toto. It's a bad look for Mercedes. I know Russell is the future. That is the way they are leaning. It is just jarring to see. It's jarring to see a little peek of the future, right? It's jarring to see Lewis Hamilton. It's jarring, I think, for all of us to see Lewis Hamilton aging at all, just because to me, Lewis Hamilton still looks like he's 25. But it's also jarring to see the relationship at Mercedes change even in the slightest, because I don't think you go on the radio and say that if things haven't been altered dramatically in terms of how management views you.
And Lewis, like I get the point about George being the younger driver, and like yes, he is the future of Mercedes, but Lewis had the pace all weekend. Like he wasn't
Yep.
far behind Verstappen, and he almost had the chance to win the race outright if it weren't for the two safety cars. So I thought he deserved the chance to try to win that race, and that's the hard part about being in the lead with a safety car, and why it tends to come down to luck sometimes. Like in
Mm-hmm.
Abu Dhabi last year, if you're in the lead with a safety car, you're making choices that you're not being able to make the same set of choices with the same amount of information as everyone else, because you're either defending your spot or you're giving it up to put on fresh tires. And so Verstappen got totally lucky with the timing of that. This is why the Alpha conspiratory are out full strength. There's going to be lots of things said on message boards this week, Spencer. It is just one of those races where it seemed like it was going to come down to Mercedes having the right strategy call, going with the one stop strategy, while Verstappen was on the two stop strategy. And instead, it came down to several ridiculous things playing out all at once in the final 20 laps.
Which means I think to wrap this conversation up and put a pin in it, since we've had the Dark George turn, since we've had someone absolutely shark it for a second place finish, I think the word finish should give you a clue as to which way I'm going here. That's correct. The best lad. Don't make a big deal of it. We're finished. The best lad is going to be Valtteri Bottas for the engine crashing out, for keeping things tight for his dude, doing us all, even though he is not on the same race team, right? Even though he is paired with a different, new, handsome driver in Zhou Guanyu, I think that Valtteri Bottas will receive. Best lad is not it. I think it will be something more finished, like top quality man, right?
Mega Man.
Mega Man. He is the Mega Man of the week, Valtteri. I hope that he's relaxing nude in a sauna right now, enjoying both an espresso and a vodka, and, you know, thinking about finish things like not talking or not talking. Everybody, the Mega Man of the week, Valtteri Bottas. That was the Finnish national anthem, by the way, in case you've never heard it. I really hadn't.
I've only probably heard it the few times Valtteri's won F1 races. I did start catching on to the tune of the Verstappen Dutch national anthem, which goes to show how much he's winning this season. I have that stuck in my head. What else happened in this race, Spencer? There was the Mercedes Red Bull battle. There was the AlphaTauri conspiracy. There was also some Ferrari to be had. So we should probably talk about them, because if there's anyone who is to gain from all of this Red Bull Mercedes nonsense, it is Ferrari. It is taking some of the heat off of what they did today.
This is astonishing, because I think about halfway through the race, we were texting each other like, I don't know. This is like, there's not a whole lot on the plate here. And then inevitably people started to have to choose, let's choose a term Ferrari's familiar with, Plan C or Plan D. They started to run out of plans, and it is an amazing amount of chaos to put into a single race, where we have to say Ferrari absolutely binning a pit stop in hilarious fashion, right? Not getting the correct number of tires prepared. That's the astonishing part here, okay? Carlos Sainz, who is, I don't want to say that he's the more unlucky or cursed of the two, because I think we've seen Charles Leclerc lose multiple races at this point because of the decisions of his coworkers that have nothing to do with him whatsoever. I think Carlos Sainz caught it today, and he caught it bad because Carlos Sainz had to wait for what seemed like an eternity at a pit stop because they could not get the left rear tire on because it wasn't there. There are 4 tires on a race car. 4. If you want to know how badly things have gone for Ferrari in terms of basic race organization this year, all right, strengths: making a beautiful car, making a fast car, hiring great drivers, looking cool, making espresso, having large hair as a race boss, all right? Being real honest, because every time they screw up, Mattia Binotto is like, yeah, that's an abomination. I'm very sorry for that. Weaknesses: actually running a race behind the scenes, because they messed up 4 and 3. Those numbers are different, and they simply weren't ready. Now, I know on the race broadcast they did a pretty good job of explaining how sometimes the pit crews have very little notice of when somebody's coming in, especially on a track like Sandvort, which is on the shorter side and which has very little warning time between we're pitting and we're here. However, 4 tires, 4, not 3. This is where we're at with Ferrari. Okay? And they're not going to fire anyone, by the way. Like, no one will be replaced. I guarantee you. I would put money on it that no one will be replaced. But they cost Carlos Sainz significant time on the track in place, and also left the gun, the tool gun. They left the whole hose sitting out in the pit lane so that Sergio Perez just ran over it on the way out.
Where do we think this other tire was? Do we think the guy was out there without the tire? Do we think the guy was just looking for the tire in the garage? Like, what's going on when you got 3 people on the same page and one guy who's just like, "Oh, I wasn't ready for this. I don't know what to do."
I think he had it over here, like back in the pit, right? I don't think he was ready at all, because you can see one crew member pointing, going, "Look!"
It's over there. Wait, no, not that one. That's the hard tire. The other one.
Yeah, we don't actually. By the way, like, would you have been surprised if it was the wrong tire? Like, if they'd gone out on like 3 hards and 1 soft. I can't remember which composite they were on at that point. But if they had done that, I would not have been surprised either. But something screwed up when you see people pointing, right? No one's supposed to point or clarify what you're doing at a pit stop.
Yes,
everyone's supposed to have their head down. Right. They're supposed to know. They're supposed to know and not think, and it's supposed to be over in a matter of seconds. Nobody should be having a discussion about anything.
Do we think there's ever a point in a Formula 1 race where it's appropriate to point at anything? I can't really think of one. Can you think of one? No, I can't think of one.
Fernando Alonso giving the Dikembe finger waggle.
That's a good one.
That, I think, is appropriate, okay? I think that's the only time. Maybe if a Dutch fan does something really insane that they would never do, like, I don't know, throwing a lit road flare onto the track during qualifying, which would never happen. Never happen.
I was going to say, like, maybe if there's a pigeon in the track and you have to say, it's that one right there. Get that one. Don't hit that. Maybe then. But probably not in the pit lane when you're looking for tires during the race and then putting them on the cars, or not. I also thought that Checo running over the wheel gun was actually pretty funny. Like, that's a good way to sabotage a Formula 1 race. Put some weird, like, random tool or instrument in the way of another car and just be like, "Oh, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. That's just, we needed to use that, so it was right there."
I really admire everything that Sky does to make this as seamless a race experience as possible. I think it's very hard. There are some sports, by the way, like what sports do you think are hardest to televise? Like, just from a production view, if you go, I have no idea how well they're doing this. I'll give you a start. The hardest sport to televise and make interesting is golf, because everyone's at the same point, right? And everyone's at different points. There's one box where everyone sits and watches 18 holes with like 40 different dudes all doing different things, and they have to make it a seamless story. F1, I know you have a canvas. It's very hard to put people in the cars. I think Sky did an awesome job, because at one point Fernando Alonso went off-roading, and they immediately switched. It just, it's the beach. Sometimes you get the urge to dune buggy, and that's what he did. And Alonso, when he was off track, they switched to the in-car camera because it looked like a fairly inconsequential little, okay, I'm off, I'm back on, little bump, we're good. Then they switched to the in-car camera, and I think we forget what stress these drivers are under physically, especially at Zandvoort, where you're always turning, always, going through serious G-forces. Just to keep the car on the road. They showed the in-car camera for Fernando Alonso, Jessica, and it looked like he had been hit with a shell. Like, the car just, like that bump, the car goes like a full 30 degrees up. You can hear it. You can feel how bad. Alonso's 41. I know His spine feels like it's filled with broken glass right now because of this.
Whose
Like, just
doesn't?
whose does it? But Fernando, like, I love that they give you little windows into the actual sort of like multiple angles of a racing
Yes.
experience. Like, they did an awesome job on that, like, whole season, but particularly this race. I felt like I understood what they were going through.
There was a New York Times article about what it takes to put on one of these races, Spencer, that I have not read because I am not a nerd. But it does sound like it is technically very difficult, which is why all of the credit to the Sky Sports team, especially our friends Crofty and Ted Kravitz, who got in a little bit of a beef during quali. Did you see that interaction between them, Spencer?
No, I did not.
Oh,
Please
it was
inform me
incredible.
of the beef.
Well, it wasn't really a beef, but it was like a no, you go. No, no, you go. No, we should cut to commercial. No, you go. Like Crofty was calling for Ted to give him some info on the track, and Ted was like, "There's only one car out here. It's Alex Albon's Williams. Let's just go." I thought we were gonna go to commercial, and Crofty's like, "Well, we're not." So to say, and he was like, "I don't really want to. We should go to commercial." And they had a back and forth for a full minute about what to do, and it was like a very quintessentially British polite off.
Yeah, like a brawl that never happens while one tells the other to walk into the door. No, sir. You. I insist.
It
Yeah.
was great. I highly recommend checking that out. You may have missed that while watching college football yesterday, but yes, Sky does a wonderful job. And I enjoyed that they had uh appropriate reactions to the Mercedes debacle of the day. Spencer, what else do we need to discuss from the race before we get to other Formula 1 things and call for questions from the audience?
I think things that we need to discuss from this race. One, we need to talk about. I'm very proud of the Dutch fans for not burning anything down. Good
Mhm.
job. Not always the case with them. Not always the best behaved fans. I haven't heard anything yet, so my fingers are crossed on that. But it's a very, very, I think, charitably raucous crowd. There have been reports of harassment, particularly from Dutch fans this year. So y'all settle down. Okay, you appear
Mm.
to be well. Yeah, you appear to be well behaved today. Just keep that up, right? Because that's the last thing anyone wants at a race where you're already sort of waiting for a tire to fly into the stands. I don't need to be worried about anything else, right? Particularly if I'm, a member of a vulnerable population. Let's keep it cool. So good job, y'all. Additionally, I want to go ahead and say um, that I think you've got the lowest key interesting story for me right now is Fernando Alonso continuing to be just amazingly consistent and competitive, just running like top 10. If had to sort of frame this as like, how impressed should I be by somebody not winning? Fernando Alonso over like the past, 5, 10 races, he's always up there, always pushing, and passes people like he's got a chip on his shoulder.
Always.
Still, yeah, passes people
Yeah.
like he is the pissed off old dude on the track.
And that was, I mean, we briefly chatted about it last week, but that was why he was not happy. Alpine didn't want to keep him around on any sort of long-term contract because he's like, hey, what the hell? Like, I'm Fernando Alonso. I'm still giving you good results here. I'm pretty consistent. I'm keeping up with my teammate. We're in a battle for fourth place right now, thanks to me. I feel like you guys should want me to stick around. And alas, they were wishy-washy about it. Kind of wanted to trade him in for someone younger. So now he's leaving. Alpine, it sounds like, is going to sign Pierre Gasly from AlphaTauri if Red Bull and AlphaTauri can find someone exciting to fill that spot. And Spencer, it now seems like they may have some answers here. There is a IndyCar driver, Colton Herta, who is from the United States, who Red Bull has their eyes on, although he does not have enough super license points to race in F1. So there's going to be a decision made in the next week about whether or not he's going to be eligible for 2023. And if he is, we will have an American driver not named Daniel Ricciardo on the grid next season.
Is he as American as Daniel Ricciardo? I'm going to go ahead and say no for the moment, okay? Until I find out that Colton Herta likes Dale Earnhardt, until I find out that he's bopping his head during the Dutch anthem like Daniel
That was
Ricciardo was
great.
today. Yeah, everyone else standing, trying to be respectful, right? Daniel Ricciardo sitting there going like, yeah, this hits,
He's
slams.
like, good one. They
Yeah,
killed it,
no.
crushed it. Counterpoint. His first name is Colton.
Colton.
That's
Colton. Strong. That's very,
pretty
very strong.
pretty American,
Okay.
pretty
And,
Cali.
and he has an American passport, which, some points. Not a
Yeah.
convincing case, but yeah. We do have some questions here. The first will be, will today be the origins of the Hamilton-Rosberg style bad vibes returning to Mercedes? I don't think we have a choice in the matter. I think that's on. That's bad vibes are right now.
I don't know, Spencer. I think that Lewis and Toto are going to have a little talk, and I think Lewis is going to come out of that one and be like, he needs to wait his turn, and I'm Lewis Hamilton, and I say so. And I don't know. I think he wins the next time something like this happens. I could be wrong, but I think Lewis is going to just pull the seniority card.
I'm going to Riverside you. I'm going to be over here and say this is a done deal. And once the slide happens, because I think if I'm inside the mind of Toto Wolff, he's like, the thing that must happen sooner must happen now. Do it now.
Toto
Right?
seemed afraid of Lewis Hamilton during the radio message, though. Like, he seemed genuinely afraid that Lewis was going to blow up the whole thing over the radio right when the race ended.
You've got a lot of I think the larger question here is who's under what kind of pressure at Mercedes, because Toto's been at it for a minute, right? And he has talked openly, like in Drive to Survive and beyond, about the toll that this job takes on him. I think that toll, by the way, is exacerbated by already being wealthy. He doesn't have to, he does this because it is his passion, okay? And that's good and bad. Because it's good, you'll keep going, you really love it. It's bad because if you do something because it's your passion, you don't always know when you're burned out, right? And that on top of an aging champion in Lewis Hamilton and an upstart who just took his first head, right? He did his first successful backstab, right, of a teammate, which is a noble tradition in F1, right? To prosper at the expense of your teammate. That's not to say George Russell did anything wrong. It just, I think, marks a turning point in this story for me. So I'm gonna disagree on that.
All right. Agree to disagree, Spencer. We have another question here in the chat. Do Dutch fans huff whippets at F1 races like they do on King's Day? I'm not sure if I know what King's Day is, but it does seem like Dutch fans do have a very good time at Formula One races, Spencer, and we can leave it at that, unless you have anything else to add.
Whippets are terrible. Don't do them.
Fair enough. How do we feel about Gasly? Next, how do we feel about Gasly going to Alpine being the worst kept secret? I mean, I think it's funny they're going to have two French guys on their team that don't like each other, apparently. Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly have a little bit of tension between them, and that has been what some of the holdup is on the whole Gasly to Alpine thing being in the bag. That and AlphaTauri obviously wanting to make sure they get something good out of releasing Pierre Gasly. But Spencer, what happens when you have two French guys on the same team that don't like each other? What are we to expect from this?
I think you're going to see intense competition between the two, and many pardon me.
Bless
you're
you.
Going to see
allergy season.
You're going to see this. You're going to see a lot of subtle digs. The French are very good at the subtle digs. So you'll see a lot of subtle digs at each other. The question I wanted to ask you to answer your question was this. What was this beef over? What was the origin of it? Because I am willing to bet it was over one of the two things. One, a woman, or two, a mixtape. Right? Listen to my DJ set. And Esteban was like, yeah, this is not, I do not like this. You could do better. Gasly was deeply hurt. He's like, I thought I matched beats perfectly.
I would like to see them fight each other with baguettes as lightsabers.
Okay. I'm going to lean into the stereotypical Frenchness of that. Because remember, it's if you use a cliche, it's hack. If you use two cliches together, it's camp. So I'm going to go ahead and say, just make it if they're both smoking at the same time and they're listening to techno, right? And arguing about genetically modified vegetables. That to me would be the most French thing.
I think this is going to be an exciting exciting team to watch in 2023. Like, yes, the car is good. Yes, the team's doing well. They're very consistent. They're, they're easily a top 4 team in F1 this season. Esteban Ocon's a pretty good driver. Pierre Gasly's also a good driver. Hasn't been having the best season this year, but things could change next year. But more importantly, like, it will be fun to have them be beefing or buffing, I guess,
But
during the 2023 season.
you said that. You said that.
I did, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, it's past noon, so I'm going to allow it because it's not too early for that. I'm gonna skip down the list of questions because I want to address one very quickly from a car dude's perspective. Will Lamborghini try to get back into F1 just despite and mock Ferrari after the way Ferrari has been this season? No, never. You don't know. Lamborghini has sniffed around F1 in 1991. I want to say they had a race team affiliation. There was some overlap. The car wasn't really that great. That's not really the point. Here is the deal. Lamborghini has one of the best deals in like automotive sport racing culture imaginable. One, they exist because Ferrari exists, okay? They're everything that Ferrari isn't. Identity-wise, that's real easy, okay? If a Ferrari is beautiful and it has control and it has speed, you just take that and flip it, and that's a Lamborghini, right? They're like, the Ferrari, it's so feminine and it's so controlled and composed and balanced. Ferrari is like, huge bull out of control. Like, they have the easiest identity in the world, okay? So they're not going to mess with that. And if Ferrari is concerned with F1, do you know what Lamborghini is concerned with? Rich people with too much money. That's it. Just make it louder and snarlier, okay? That's it. They have nothing to gain by getting this, especially with Porsche getting into it. Lamborghini just doesn't have the same scale. Their current owners have no interest, I think, in creating more competition for the race team that they're already supporting. No, Lambo will never ever get into this. The best way to mock Ferrari is to be like, never try. Make huge loud cars for people who can afford them. That's it.
Spencer, I saw you tweeting something about Lamborghini earlier. Can you give me like the Cliff's notes on that?
Yes. So Lamborghini really only exists because Ferruggio Lamborghini was the guy who was running the tractor company. If you don't know, Lamborghini is a tractor company with a sports car problem.
So it's like, hold on. So it's like if John Deere was like, we're making luxury cars now?
It is exactly like that. It is because Lamborghini and Ferrari, Lamborghini purchased one of Enzo Ferrari's cars, and he complained about, I believe, the clutch to Enzo Ferrari in person, saying, the clutch is a little iffy on this. I don't like it. And Ferrari basically said, hey, tractor boy, why don't you just go off to the farm? I'll worry about the pretty cars. And Lamborghini, being super emotional and a man, said, I will build a whole company just to build a car to prove you wrong, Enzo. And that is literally the origins of the Lamborghini brand. Came from Enzo Ferrari being like, tractor boy, you go play on the farm. That's it.
And to this day, Ferrari still lacks clutch.
Wow. I couldn't dunk harder than that. I think we're at a wrap.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week after Monza. Maybe Daniel Ricciardo will get the repeat. We'll chat some more about him at his sort of home race. He does speak Italian, I guess, so that counts for something.
Listen, we're gonna be Italian as hell. We're gonna be smoking a little bit of red wine up in here. We'll have the early pasta lunch. It's gonna be delicious.
I won't be here. You'll just be talking to a bust made of gabagool. I think.
That's fine. I will be addressing the ancestors.
Well, thanks for watching this week. It's been fun. Spencer, as always, thank you. And we will be back next week for the final race of this triple header.
Arrivederci.